Well, hey, welcome to the last of the 9 sessions for the leadership conference. Really appreciate those. I know a lot of you have been on almost every one of them, and some of the new faces here tonight to talk a little bit about high school hockey. Our guest is none other than Jack Weinberg, who's going to lead the discussion for tonight. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jack, and let me know if you want the next slide, Jack.
Very good. Well, welcome all of you. I appreciate you and worked out that it's intermission to the Stanley Cup game. So for those of you watching the game, you won't miss too much. Jim, you can go ahead and change up slides.
All right.
So welcome. I have 4 basic topics. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank all the people who put together this conference. Jim Clare, Gretchen Cockey, my partner in crime on pretty much everything I do, Laura Johnson, who, if you don't know, really runs most of AHI, and all of us just go to bed. Not really true, but we don't all go to bed, but Laura, if you need help and in the high school system with all of our registrations and so forth, Laura is a incredible asset. So
thank you, Jack.
My pleasure. And Jim, Gretchen put together this program, and this is really a marathon, not a sprint.
And Carrie's active.
And Carrie's Atch too, but hopefully she's sleeping.
No.
Oh, well, see, just when I thought I was safe.
And it's Jack. Why? What were you saying about me just as I got in?
I'll never tell. Anyway, welcome. I'm going to address a number of things. There were a few questions that came in previous to the meeting, and I want to address one of them right up front. Somebody asked about the United Center and the finals, which is, to me, the end of a very long race, and concentrating on one event. And I hope whoever asked the question is not involved in high school hockey, so that with the possibility that they can play one game at the end of the season. It's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's been a present to us from the Blackhawks. Whether that continues or not is not up to us. When it's scheduled for those of you who ask constantly throughout the season, when are we going to know when we're going to the United Center? My answer to you is buy a ticket. They have games all the time. Go and watch. But in terms of high school, that's subject to the beneficence of the Wirtz family and the hockey club and the owners of the United Center. And we don't know. We don't know if it'll happen this year. We don't know if it happens when. We don't know in what format. So if you ask me again in another 4 months, I will give you the same answer. So I just wanted to start with that. I hope that you and the kids that all play the game because they love to play and play with their friends. And that brings me to the next point. High school hockey, in my opinion, is truly the only community hockey there is. Tier 2, people move into clubs, they transfer from club to club. High school, you must play for the high school team. And if you're in a combination, that combination is hopefully being kept to a small number of schools so it can afford kids that don't have enough in one school to be able to play. That brings me to the first bullet point on my conversation. And that's the future of combined high school hockey. We have about 3,500 players that play high school at the moment. We have quite a number of teams that are pure, and as almost equally, if not larger, group of combined teams. in high school. The original concept for creating combined teams was to give a group of kids a chance to play and organizations to grow, and eventually have the hope that they would become pure organizations, meaning they represent one single school. Well, guess what? Combined hockey is not going away, and scum schools will never be able to have a pure program, but that doesn't mean that players should be denied the joy of playing high school hockey with kids who live as close to them as possible. Primarily in the same district is what we shoot for. So going with that, the high school committee has been discussing for the last few years what to do about programs that have, thank you, combined programs that have been so successful that they're up to having perhaps 4 teams, which is not quite what was the intention for combined. We are examining it. Nothing's changing this season, but this is the direction that's being discussed at the moment. If you have a program that large, and depending on what the numbers you have from a single school, we are looking at the possibility of having a rule that would say you have to have a team that at least that's a pure team. If you have enough from one school, now it wouldn't have to be your varsity team. It could be a JV team. But the concept again is trying to have as many players play with the kids they go directly to school with. The numbers and what that is all about is a long discussion. And those of you who have an interest, and there are many, stay informed. We will publish. You play in leagues, talk to your league presidents. They are all on the high school committee, as well as others. That's the first point that I'd like to make. We have had some rule changes, not USA hockey rule changes, but over the last couple of years, the biggest one went to effect, and then we went into COVID. And that was, we changed the existing 7 up, 7 down rule to where we don't allow kids to play down from varsity to JV or JV1 to JV2 unless there's an emergency, and that would have to be okayed by both the high school chair and by Laura Johnson, the registrar. She keeps a close eye on what's going on and is integral to this process. That being said, by doing this, we have created 9 up. What that means is a player that is dual rostered, say between JV1 and varsity, can play 9 games on the varsity, and that's as long as there's room on that roster, and it doesn't deplete the JV team below the 14 players and 1 goalie. But in the case of 9 up, they could play 9 games on varsity, get experience, help out in a shortage, all kinds of things. Once they play their 10th, they're stuck frozen on the varsity roster in terms of playing the rest of the year. But that can't happen or be allowed if it'll deplete the team that they came from number below 14 and 1. That being said, the whole concept of a high school sports program is to try and move up, is to progress, from a JV level to the varsity level. We're trying to create as many opportunities as possible for kids to be able to be seen or move up. And this is a great opportunity.
Hey, Jack.
Yes, Evan, please.
Yeah. I think the clarification has to be the 9 up is in your league, because if we're going, it's 9 up in your league. if you have a 30-man roster and they're double rostered on that roster, they can play in non-league games. So
That
I
is
don't want.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Evan, great clarification. Thanks for chiming in. Absolutely. The count that we use is only league games. There are a number of teams out there that dual roster kids in the beginning of the season and give them a chance by playing early season tournaments, non-league, to see if they can make their varsity team. There's all kinds of things that are available. And what we are trying to do is offer the greatest flexibility, but protect the integrity of the games and the teams. Thanks, Evan. Let's move on for a moment. Junior varsity state tournament. Junior varsity state tournament has not been canceled, but it is changing in its format, and we're working on exactly how that will work now. But the answer is it's going to be different. Understand that there are no other high school athletic teams that have a junior varsity state tournament. There were, as of 2 years ago before COVID, there were only 2 other states in the United States that had any kind of JV state tournament, and those were very small state numbers, much less than our 3,500. So that being said, we're looking at something approximating an NCAA type process of having teams play in the JV state tournament. It will be dependent on how they place in their leagues, which is where they play the majority of their games. So that is a good determinant as to what teams should go to the JV state tournament. And we'll pick a number of teams from the upper level JV in each of the leagues. And those are the teams that are going to end up going to the JV state tournament. I'm going to ask for questions at the end of this, so write them down or you'll forget them like I do. Volunteers. Very simply, we need new blood. I don't like to say that a lot of our people and AHI and committees look like an ad for AARP, but we're getting up there. A lot of us have been doing this a long time. There's a lot of you out there who think you have great ideas, and probably a lot of you do. So, you know what? Get involved and start working. And I hope those of you will, want to get there to make high school hockey better. I think it's a great game, but it can be a lot better with all of our help. So get involved, because there are spaces and all of us will move on. As I told people recently, I do not plan to die in my position as high school chair. So let's see some of you come out there and help us out. Hockey rule changes. Jim Clare posted in the chat, so you can always ask questions in the chat while I'm doing my presentation. But I'll open it up for more questions later, but you can always post your questions in the chat function. As many of you know, the USA hockey rules change on a 4-year basis. This is the year 1 of the next cycle, so it's new rules. We have been very fortunate that Bob Matheson, who is a former president of AHI, who was the chair up until after this meeting of USA a few weeks ago, was the chair of high school hockey and at USA, and made incredible speech to the USA Congress. And high school hockey, other than adult, is the only division whose icing and offsides rule did not change this year. All levels, from U8s all the way up to U18s, all are playing, except for high school, immediate offsides, and the icing if you ice the puck in those in those levels, the puck comes back. There is no free icing. You can't ice the puck and not have it come back. High school, thankfully, is stayed the same, and I think it makes the game a heck of a lot more fun. The next thing I want to talk about is something you'll see different is that when our penalties this year, and this will affect everybody, puck comes back to your home zone, just like in NHL. So be prepared. When you have a penalty, the faceoff is always going to come back. If it's a single penalty, always come back to your own zone. So that's something new that affects all of us. Abuse of official. Let me start by saying in this last year, we were down 800 officials. That is an incredible number. And a lot of you complain about the quality of the refereeing. Well, I have to tell you, when we are using level 2s to do upper level games because we are so short of more experienced players, you're going to have issues. There's no way around it. And one of the reasons, obviously, with COVID is a lot of guys didn't want to spend the money to go through a lot of training and expense to be officials. The other thing is we were already seeing a tremendous fall off in referees from people who just got tired of being sworn at, screamed at, and threatened. USA Hockey has increased the penalties for that, and you're going to have to be aware. Does that mean that the officials are going to make every call perfectly? I've been watching the NHL. They've missed a bunch of stuff. People have gotten hurts and stitches and everything else, and these guys are making six figures. Be accepting of the fact that we can't have a game without officials. And screaming at them, swearing at them, anything else is not going to help the game. It's not going to help our official situation. There is the rule change this year where the second penalty on a coach, no matter if it happens in you run one right after another, or if one happens in the first and one in the third, they're done. It's a game misconduct. So understand that becomes a game misconduct. I am, for whatever reason that serendipity came in, I have become the chairman of suspension and review when Kevin Bolger, who did an incredible job, became president. Let me tell you something. There's only so many hours in the day to do some of this stuff. So the suspension committee isn't going to look at every time a coach gets suspended for abuse of official. It's just going to be sitting, and that's it. Don't call us. Don't write us. Don't go crazy. Please tell your coaches, take the warning. If you get tagged by an official in the beginning of the game, my suggestion, don't berate him afterwards. Doesn't mean you can't ask questions. You should be polite. You should be direct. But the call's not going to get reversed. And there's no real appeals court. It's a one-game suspension. Don't do it. Please don't do it. If you get a second one, it becomes 3 games. The referees, and Eric Housel is on the call to help us if there's a question. The referees are going to be trained very clearly on guidelines that they're developing as to what constitutes abuse of official. Once they've done that, I promise that once it's given to me, that I will make sure that it's distributed or put into the newsletter.
Hey, Jack, real quick on that. There's a question in the chat. Maybe Eric can touch for you. Is that applied to players as well, Eric?
Eric, you want to chime in?
Yeah, that does not apply to players. The rule that now does apply to players is what we formerly knew as the 5 and 15 rule. So the fifth penalty to a player, upon the fifth, that player would have been ejected. USA Hockey passed a rule where it's now 4 and 12. So on the fourth penalty to a player, that player is ejected. And 12 to a team is another issue. But so that just goes back to Jack's point of, because we have seminars starting at the end of next month, and that's a key training point for us is you could have a player take 2 and 12 in the first period and take 2 and 10 in the first and 2 and 10 in the third. There's your fourth. There's a game misconduct. So, we want to make sure that we're educating guys on, let's not go overboard on that. If it's an injury potential penalty and it's warranted, then, that's the situation we find ourselves in. But no, I guess the short answer to your question is no, the earlier rule applies to the abuse of officials just applies to a coach. It's only one bench minor now, whereas potentially it could have been multiple bench minors.
On the other hand, a player who persists in that behavior of abusing an official also can be ejected, correct, Eric?
Correct. That has not changed. So that player would receive 2. If he keeps going, then 10. If he keeps going, then he's hitting the showers early. So that has not changed.
Jim, do you want to chime in here for a little bit about penalty times and game times, which is out there as a new rule as well?
Sure, Jack. I'll pull it up as well. We can take a look at it here. Give me 1 second. I've got it on my.
So this could affect different high school leagues, as there are some that have different length periods.
Yep.
And USA wants to get players back on the ice at an appropriate amount of penalty time based on the length of the period.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on my screen there. You can see it real quick on that left side. So to Jack's point, the period lengths and the penalty lengths are being adjusted. So we're talking about high school games, so you're probably not gonna have too many 12-minute or less period lengths, but between 12 and less than 17, the penalty lengths are 1:30 for a minor. 17 minutes and above, it's 2 minutes as it has been. And then the major penalties, you can see down the bottom and the left side, 12 to less than 17 minutes, it's a 4-minute for a major or match. 17 and over, it's still the 5. So there's, there's been some adjustments for those that are playing anywhere between 12 and less than 17 from what you've probably seen before.
So Larry is asking about the misconduct penalties. Has there been a change in the length of a misconduct penalty?
Sure. Eric, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of misconducts being changed. I think they're going to remain the same structure that they have been. If we're talking about, Northwest League, for example, those are 8 minutes, but for JV and varsity, those are going to remain the same as far as I understand. But we do have some questions into USA that we're waiting clarification on. So as far as this portion of the rule goes, so as soon as we get that, we'll make sure to get that out.
And we'll publish that. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, what other questions do you have? This is the time to weigh in. We've got some time, so please, if you have, you can either chat or open up your microphone one at a time and have at it.
Hey, Jack, can I add one thing that I think is really going to impact this group this season?
Yes, please.
One of the rules that USA passed is the attempted shot on goal now results in the face-off staying down low. So, in the last few years where a player would come in, take a slap shot, goes off the crossbar into the net, that stays down low. What they did is they're trying to mirror what, NCAA and ACHA is doing. And, if a player comes in across the blue line, takes a shot with the lob wedge and it goes 10 feet into the net, that's considered a shot on goal. and that resulting face-off is going to stay down low now.
So if it hits the crossbar and goes out,
Crossbar and out will stay down low. If
okay.
I'm just that bad of a shot and I just put it right up into the netting above the goalie, that's going to stay down low because they are considering that a attempted shot on goal.
Well, for those players that have extremely curved stick and have a tendency to launch the puck 30 feet above the net, have
Right,
that.
but correct, but that's also going to be a teaching point for our level 3 and level 4 officials. The only other one I wanted to add in there real quick is, last year was a COVID year, so it was kind of unique, and I know a lot of things were not enforced the way they should have been. But if we think back 2 to 3 years when USA introduced the rule that got rid of finishing your hits or tapping the boards after a big hit, that's going to be enforced. That's going to be an emphasis in our seminars again this year. So we may see an uptick in those penalties early on. So just be aware that we will be teaching that because that's a big emphasis from USA. So we want to make sure that we're not ignoring that just because of COVID, and we're bringing that back into the fold.
Eric, do you see Matt's question on the chat?
I did not.
Can you, he's asking, does that mean a tip shot into the netting by the attacking team will stay in the offensive zone as well?
Yeah, we're waiting on USA to give us some situations, as they call it, that go into the back of our rule book. But yeah, basically anything that's attempted on net, whether it's off the goalie and out, crossbar or out, I completely miss it because I'm that bad and out, it's going to stay down low.
Very good. Claire O'Connor, I saw your name on the call. Is there anything you'd like to talk about as girls' high school at this point?
I don't think so. I'd asked a question earlier on the girls one, just because a couple years ago we changed where all of our league games had to be finished by the state playoffs. Like I think all the leagues have to. So as soon as we have that date, we're trying to change our format of our league setup for scheduling. But we want to ensure that we're through that. So as soon as we have those available dates, that'd be great. But other than that, no.
I'm going to wait for this question from Seth for a second. I want to address the fact that we have had software issues with the combined application. If you haven't attempted it, you're probably in the same boat as those people who have. There are a number of programming issues that are working on it. That being said, the end of this month, I'm sure we'll extend it if everybody's not done. It's been an issue. Certain teams have had questions about what schools are in their roster and on. Those are being cleared up. But let me tell you something. You can't just ask for a school and expect to get it. All of that is reviewed by the high school committee, and we're very careful as how do we add schools to a combination. I've been asked about a showcase team this fall. The showcase that we've been going to has had some changes and some growth issues and is looking at how much ice they have. So the question is, we hope to. We have not been guaranteed a spot as yet. So we are waiting to hear from that tournament what they're doing about ice and how many teams they're taking. The other question I had right now, and Eric, you can answer this, is, a lot of games only had 2 officials in the last period of time, especially with our numbers down. Do we look to be able to get back to, 3 or 4 officials this year, or are we likely to be at 2 officials a game for the most part?
I would hope we could get back to where we were. We're really not going to know for at least another 6 weeks where our numbers stand. We're hoping to get a majority of the guys back, but you know, realistically, some people may have found other things during COVID and, you know, for whatever reason, don't choose to come back. So we're hoping we get back to where we were, but it's a waiting game right now.
Laura has placed her email and phone number in the chat. Laura is the single greatest resource you all have for almost any question that involves rosters and kids and eligibility. Please don't assume you know the rule. Call and ask her or send her an email. She's been working on these combined applications, helping out, making my life much easier than it would be. So be nice to her, but she's probably your best bet in asking your question. But also, when you're asking a question about girls high school hockey, always loop in Claire O'Connor. She is overseeing as president of the league, and everybody plays in it, but she is overseeing all of the girls high school hockey. So your questions, make sure that she is included. If it's to me or to Laura, or sometimes even better, all three, make sure Claire's on it. Anybody else? All right.
Hey,
Listen.
hey, Jack, real quick, just to piggyback on Eric and the question about the refereeing. You know, this group here is at a premium spot for referees, right? So if you want to talk to your players, some of the kids that you coach, it's a great opportunity to give them a chance to do something, earn some money, and get with Eric and get through some of these clinics and get them certified. Obviously, you know, they may not be reffing one of your games now, but down the road, you know, they may be. So the more we can help out, and we talk about on the youth side as well, to get these kids engaged. I think it's a great opportunity for them to earn some money and be part of the game.
Thanks, Jim. Can I add one more thing, and then I'll shut up and not take up your time.
I don't believe you, but go
ahead. Okay. For anybody on the call, first of all, thanks for taking time out of your night. When you guys get to the point of having team, parent, player coaching meetings, please, 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 we can get my email to you, but reach out to somebody on the IHOA board, and we will make sure to get somebody to your meetings, and we'll walk through these rule changes and what we're teaching in seminars this year. But I would strongly encourage that.
And aside from the idea that you make a few bucks, for a high school kid to become a referee is a tremendous lesson in responsibility and learning, and becoming more responsible and working a job. It's a tremendous, tremendous experience. I started refereeing sports at 14, and I think I got better. There's the vote's still out on that, but please encourage them. It's not just a way to make a few bucks. It's a tremendous learning and maturing experience, and I recommend it for the kids. One other issue I want to bring up, goalies. Those of you, most of you who've been around, new people may not know, there is a goalie program in high school hockey. Bob Wagner, who's the head of the North Central League, and Bob's name and email, phone number, and all that are listed. But Bob Wagner is the goalie guru for high school hockey. He has done an incredible job of matching up kids that need teams, and they don't have to be playing at a school that has high school hockey. They just have to be a goalie. Programs that may have excess goalies, more than you need. If you've got more than two a team, please encourage the boys and girls, encourage them to go into the goalie pool, because there are teams out there that really need goalies. For those that are short and looking for a goalie, same thing. Bob Wagner, he he placed, I think, almost 40 goalies last year. That's an amazing number. And that's for girls teams, boys team. We changed rules to make it easier. If you have a girl who's playing high school hockey and not tier 1 in addition, and wants to also play on her high school boys team, well, it's not a boys team. It's a high school team. They are allowed to dual roster. Boys can't do it, but girls can double roster on a girls' high school team and a regular high school team as a goalie. Not skaters, just goalies. And you know what? It's a great experience, and it's a lot of competition, and it can help some schools out and some kids get some more ice time. Anybody else have anything? Evan, you got anything else to help me with tonight?
I'm quiet, Jack. I'm very happy.
Guys, I'm glad they're recording this. Anyway, I want to thank everybody. It's been a long week. Jim, Gretchen, Laura has been on every call. You know, a lot of our people have been. High school is a great time. I've coached IHSA sports. I've coached high school hockey, coached pretty much kids in sports from little kids all the way up to college in at least 2 sports. This is the best time. And high school hockey, playing with the kids that you grew up with, is the most fun you'll ever have. And if we all keep that in mind, that it's fun, we're the only level that really has a real fan base. You know, you can go to tier 1 games where there's some parents, you can go to tier 2 games, you know, where there's a few, but high school games are a blast. If we keep the kids civil and we cheer for our teams and not hate the other team, it's the best experience there is in hockey. Jim, I turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jack, and thanks everyone. So just a final note as we end the week, these will all be posted online at the AI website, AI News, as well as their YouTube page. Within the next couple of days, they'll be available along with all the slides from the different presentations that went on this week. So for you guys that stay up late, hopefully you got some good information, and certainly Jack is your high school point of contact. And as you said, Claire O'Connor for the girls side as well. So keep up the great work. Look forward to a great high school season. And thanks.
One more thing.
Yep.
Laura did post Bob Wagner's information in the chat. So those of you who need it, bring it up. But sorry, now I'll give you the last word.
That's okay. I don't need the last word. Just thanks everyone. Have a great night, and we look forward to seeing you at the rink.